Hi and welcome to day 4 of Hedgehog Hollow's relaunch. I'm so very excited to be able to tell you that I'm now part of Dick Blick's affiliate team. What does that mean? Well, it means that I get to work with some of their fantastic materials and you can link to them through Hedgehog Hollow. Today I wanted to do a short introduction to Copics as part of my affiliation with Dick Blick. Many of you have asked for different things on different types of mediums and markers. So we're going to start out with some Copics, and Dick Blick is always where I go to buy mine. They have some great deals and also some coupon codes that will be appearing on the blog shortly. So here I have this beautiful Love You stamp set that I got from Simon Says Stamp. Again, I'll link that up for you. But I'm going to show you what alcohol markers are, different types of Copics, and what the letters and numbers mean on those Copics. So let's get started. So before we get started with our card, I wanted to share with you a little introduction to Copics. Now, I'm by no means an expert, but I will share with you what I know. So I had this colour card that hangs on my desk, and I printed this out. I made this myself on Excel and I coloured it in. It is quite out of date now. There's quite a few new colours that aren't on here. But on the whole, Copics first of all have a prefix letter. So T is a toner grey, W is a warm grey, B is of course blue, BV is a blue violet, E I believe is an earth tone, and I have 2 pages of those. Spiker or Speaker, they're their glitter pens. They're absolutely beautiful. They have pieces of glass in them to give them a lovely shimmer, obviously very fine. RV is a red violet, they're your pinky shades. V for violet, G for green, YR is a yellow red, R being red, a yellow green in the YGs, and then if they have an F at the front, that's a fluorescent shade, so there's a few of those. Is a BG for blue green. There's your ordinary blues, the second page of them. There's your Y for yellows, and then you have cool greys and neutral greys. Then each one has an associated number, and they go from 0 to 10, light to dark. On the sort of earthy tones, let's go back to those. So here you can see you start off, the more zeros you have, the paler it will be, and then you build up to a 9. Then you start back off with a 1, and that has a slightly different shade. The 1-1 being the lightest, and then you go through to a 19, which is the darkest. You start back at 2-0 or 2-1 in this case, and you go all the way through to 2-9 being darker. Then you have a slightly darker shade in the 30, and that goes all the way through to 39, and so on and so on. Now your Copics are alcohol markers, so they do behave slightly differently. You also get blender pens, they're a 0, and Copics come in 3 different sizes, as well as a re-inker as well, but I don't tend to have any of the re-inkers. So you have a chow, which is the cheapest, that's the smallest size. You get a chisel tip on one end, and you get a brush tip on the other. You then have the Copic sketch, which is the most popular, and that's the most that I have. Again, you get a chisel tip, and you get a brush on the other end. This is the original Copic marker that had a felt tip style nib on one end and a chisel tip on the other. So they're your different options when it comes to Copics, and I recommend either getting the sketch or the chow depending on your budget. If you want to get lots of colours, then go with the chow, or you could go with the Copic that has the sketch, which has slightly more ink inside of it and will last you a bit longer. So going back to the fact that they're alcohol markers means you need to use slightly different ink. And in that respect, I would advise either the Memento, which you will need to use a dye water-based ink. So our rule with inks is to always use the opposite. So because we're working with alcohol, we want to use water as our ink. Or you could go with a hybrid pad. And my current favourite is the My Favourite Things Black Licorice. And that's the one we'll be working with today. So when it comes to blending with alcohol markers, I will be doing lots more videos on the Copics because you have asked for them. But you can first of all, if you want to get some really great blends, is lay down a layer of the colourless blending solution first. And then I'm going to pick up 2 of my toners. So I'm going to start with a T1, which is our light grey, and I'm going to put that down. And then I'm going to go in with a T3. So I'm just going to skip a couple of shades like this. And then you can take back in, wrong end, of your 1, and you can just blend, and you will see how seamlessly this is now going to blend in. Once this is dry, you can go back and you can add more layers of colour to make it darker. and you can just keep going. And you can see I can pull it right back out the other side. You can also, once you've coloured, you can take back in your colourless blender and you can pull the colour out, so you can blend it in and out. So we go from light, dark, light. Now with our sketches and our chows, one end has this thicker ring around it, you can see here, whereas it doesn't have this at this end. This end will always be your brush tip, so that's an easy way without having to look where your brush tip is. So let's get started with a project. I'm just going to start out just with some basic colouring of Copics. And my preference for cardstock with Copics excuse me, is the Nina Solar White, and this is the 90-pound strength or weight. So I'm going to do the same, Love You. And I'm just going to position these using my stamp press, and I'll be die cutting these out afterwards. So I'm going to pick those up, and I'm just going to take my favourite things, hybrid pad. The great thing about hybrid is it works whether you're working with water or with alcohol. You never ever have to think about your ink type again. But if you do prefer the dye and the solvent based, just always work with opposites. There we go. So I'm just going to wipe this off. And pop these to the side for later. So I'm going to take our panel, and I'm just going to colour it in like a normal felt tip colouring. And just before I do that, I'm going to make sure my ink is dry with my heat tool, just because I don't want any smudging, and I haven't got the time on a video to allow it to dry just for a couple of minutes. So that should be fine. So I've picked out a few shades here, just some basic ones that would be great to get you started. So I should also have my darker purple here. So I have a V25 and a BV1. I have my FV2, my RV63, my RV4 and my YG09. But I'll link these particular pens up in the blog post, because this is a really nice set to get you started for some flowers and basic colouring. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out flowers at random, and I'm just going to colour them in using the brush tip. So I'll let you just watch as I colour away. So now I have my finished coloured card. You'll see that I used the brighter colours less, and I started with my nice pastels and then filled in each flower. So I'm going to cut this out using the My Favourite Things Inside and Out dies. These have stitching on both edges, so let me cut it out and you can see the effect that it gives you. I'm going to use a little bit of post-it tape to hold this down. We'll just make sure that's nicely lined up. So, and I'm just going to pop this through my die cutter. So that's our finished cutout. And if I peel this off of here for you, you can see that you get this stitch detail on the inside and the outside. So both layers gets the stitching, which means you can make some great frames and borders and things using these dies. Very versatile. And I've cut the next size out in some Melon Mambo, some Stampin' Up cardstock that I had left over. And I'm just going to stick these together. That's my tape runner. And I use the Tombow tape runner, which is exactly the same as the Stampin' Up one. There we go. That's stuck on there. So now we can make our card base. Now to make this, I have my Hero Arts ombre pad, and I used the flower that came with the lovely words here. And these are great because you can make thank you, you rock, I love you, loads and loads of different phrases. I'm going to stick this onto here, and I've got a card base that I've already pre-scored out of Nina Solar White, and then I've stuck it down with some of my temporary painter's tape. And then what I've done is just tried to eyeball around about 1/4 inch evenly all the way around. And what that does, that gives you here, you can see here my nice corner, it makes it look like there's an extra layer, there's a border there. I really like the look that that gives you. So we're going to use our ombre pad. I'm just going to keep my stamp chamois nice and handy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my flower and I'm going to put it over the middle of these two colours. And I'm just going to dab it around so I don't get too harsh a line. And then when I stamp it out, you'll see that I get the lovely ombre colours throughout my flower. So I'm going to stamp a few of these all over. And then I'm going to wipe it off. And then I'm going to pick the top two and I'm going to do exactly the same. And you can see that I get some different shades in my flowers. There we are. And if I hold this up to the camera, you'll see that all my flowers have 2 different shades in them, and that there's 2 different types of those shades as well. So it's a really nice way to use your ombre pads on some smaller stamps. So let's wipe this off. And then I'm going to very carefully peel off my painter's tape. This is a slow and steady wins the race when peeling this off, just so that you don't rip any of your cardstock. Okay. You can see that lovely frame that we have around there. And then just to finish it off, I'm going to mount it with some dimensionals on the back here. And one in the middle. And then I will stick this down. And there we have our beautiful finished card, just using some basic Copic techniques. So be sure to join us again for some more Copic techniques. Tomorrow I have some on vellum for you, and also how to do some blended roses. Be sure to also check out our Facebook group, which is Stamping at Hedgehog Hollow, or our Facebook page, which we are live on every day at 11:30 Eastern. We have tips and tricks and all sorts of things for you. You can also subscribe to our channel so that you can catch every video that we publish. And also the blog will be linked below. So there's a blog post with all of the supply lists. There's a daily giveaway going on as we relaunch the blog. And we also have some great close-up pictures for you. So join us again soon, and happy stamping. Bye.